Okay, so looking at how assistive technology and particularly artificial intelligence can really help with inclusion in schools and also in the community at large. I am bringing this to you guys today in my various roles, but most importantly, as a parent of a child with intellectual and physical disabilities, and our journey through starting in life skills classroom for the majority of my son's school career, and then bridging out to include, now he's in high school and he's fully included, but with a lot of modifications, and assistive tech and artificial intelligence has been really, really, really helpful in that journey. So I don't share this lightly because it is such personal information, but I really feel like it's important to show a real story of what the research backs up about including students. And I think a lot of times inclusion is mistaken, integration is mistaken for inclusion, where students are just physically put in a room without supports. That's not inclusion. Really, for my son to be included, he needs modified work. He needs accessibility to that work. And so that's really what I'm talking about. That's been really game changing. When he's physically there, I check in with him a lot, and he still really likes where he's at. But it's far less effective, and I can see it in the friends that he makes, and just how well accepted he is in a classroom, how much they really are thinking about him as a part of the classroom culture and the classroom community. It's really a stark difference between classrooms that are actively working to include him and find ways for him to access, versus classrooms that are like, okay, I'll have him physically there, but whatever he does, fine, and he gets a grade for essentially smiling. So we went to full inclusion a year before his 3-year reevaluation. And the difference I saw in that 1 year was so stark that when his 3-year reevaluation came around, I said, whatever he was tested on before, whatever you use that same test, because I've seen a lot of growth, and I would love to see if that growth really translated. And so they used the same IQ testing, which he had been tested on several times before, and is again a measure that's not supposed to change. And he went up almost 1 full standard deviation. His reading comprehension went up, his math concepts and applications went up, his adaptive behavior, those life skills, those went up a ton. That's something I really noticed. His language exploded. That was another thing that I absolutely noticed at home. And then even his physical therapist said she got goosebumps when she saw the bilateral coordination, because there's, I guess, a correlation between bilateral coordination, like the brain talking to each other, and the two sides, and improved learning and memory. So not a lot of his other PT things changed, but that score jumped way up. And so the whole team was kind of amazed at looking at just 1 year, what a difference it had made in maximizing his potential. And some of the individual things that I saw is, he wasn't able to use a calculator before, and then he was learning to use a calculator, which has had benefits, which I'll talk about in a little bit, about just him being in the community. He had never logged into a computer before, and didn't know his password. And I think folks always had logged in maybe for him and got him on the platform or whatever. He couldn't complete assignments independently, and now he can do that. He can log into the computer. He's memorized the student number. He can navigate a couple of different learning platforms, and he can complete modified work. He even was struggling to complete worksheets like top to bottom, left to right. It would just sort of be all over the page. and the format of just the assistive tech, just the reader reading to him left to right, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom every day made a huge difference in that just repeated exposure. And so all of this to say, I tried to capture a little of everything of each of the different kinds of skills. Like one of the biggest was at one point he asked me why his sister had a best friend and he did not. And that really, I mean, we know that that loneliness is a big thing. When there's not a whole lot of inclusion in the community and in adulthood. And so after that year, I ran into a kid randomly and they're like, oh, that's your kid? He's like one of the most popular kids in school. And so that it was just incredible as a mom. So just kind of all over, it made a huge difference. But really, it could not have come but for the assistive technology and some of the things that we've kind of learned along the way. And so there's this great book, Inclusive 365, and they in there, the author of it kind of talks about how the book is kind of broken into strategies and tools, because the tools will change. The technology is always evolving. So even the tools that I'm going to share today, in 2 years, I probably wouldn't share the same tools, or I'd share different tools to solve a different problem. So really, it kind of first, I think, comes with starting with your mindset that I want to take myself out of the equation as much as I can and provide as much independence as I can. And I bet there's a way to do that. And then comes sort of the strategies on how to do that, and then the tools that actually kind of get you there. And so I try to delineate a little bit of the difference in that as we kind of look at talking about that. And so before we could even do what I do with AI, it really did start with that very initial learning how to use text to speech and speech to text tools. And now he's gotten to the point where his proficiency with those tools, I mean, he didn't know how to talk on a phone a couple of years ago. He did not know what texting was. It was a long time before we even got a phone. And I think that's something as parents that sometimes we forget how early kids are getting exposed to phones and getting access to that as part of their day. And we always want for our kids to have access to the same things as everybody else. But phones can feel really risky. And that's kind of an area where I just can't even believe how helpful that has been, even with like GPS, like having Life 360 is an app we have on our phone that has like where he is. And so I'm at the point where I can trust him to walk from the high school to the Y after school, and I can kind of watch and make sure that he gets there. But he always has his phone on him because he loves his phone. So I can pretty much trust that that's a good way for me to keep track of where he's at. And I know everybody's different and every kid is different. And so it looks different. But again, there's that mindset of how can I use these tools to increase independence for wherever, my kid is at. And so all of our journeys are definitely very different. But just in a short amount of time, like he has not only learned to use the text to speech tools and which is hearing it read to him. So he listens to my text, which you can kind of see the, okay, good, do you want McDonald's? So I can type that to him now, and now he knows how to use his accessibility tool, which is down here in the corner, to listen to that. And so I can just text him now. And since he's been using that, he was not able to write or spell a word before we started this. And now, like, I would bet that he didn't have to, sometimes he'll ask his phone. So he'll use a lot of strategies. He'll say, okay, Google, how do you spell whatever? So this is probably one of the longest ones I've ever gotten from him, which is what I loved about it. I know he took a lot of time doing that to ask me for money. A very important message. that he wanted money. So he took a long time and he wrote that. And I know that he wrote that with asking, okay, Google, and I watch him do it. It's not the most efficient way, but he'll ask each word that he doesn't know. But words like hey and mom and yes, in the last couple of years, I mean, we went 14 years without any of that. And in the last couple of years, just consistently using assistive tech, it just amazes me how far he's come with it. And it's just that repeated exposure that I don't think he could have ever gotten in a life skills classroom. And so there's, that's why I think it's a Ghana instead of gonna. I think he probably said, how do you spell gonna? And it probably gave him Ghana. And so that's what he spelled. But he also doesn't usually do a long message like this. He'll use a recording. He'll use his recording to make a recording for me, which is this little, hopefully you can see my mouse, but it's this little bar right here. So he'll use a variety of tools, and he'll use it, and he's gotten enough proficiency that he uses the method that makes the most sense for him. And so like there's all these different things that I'm hoping we kind of get there. He's not making his own appointments, but I know he's going to be a senior next year. That's on my mind of like, I wonder what appointments he can make for himself. I definitely want him to practice making plans so that he doesn't fall off the cliff into loneliness when he graduates. I want him to be able to order a pizza on his own, so that I could maybe take a weekend and feel comfortable that he's gonna be fed. So these are all things that he's starting to do or is able to do since we've started using that. And so there are links to just some simple tools that's not artificial intelligence, but that I think are really important at really kind of maximizing what you can do with AI. These are kind of the more simple things, but they're important to think about. And so just using text to speech and speech to text, some of the ways that helped him access is when we do make modified tests, like he can answer that. So this was part of a assignment about, oh gosh, I can't remember. It was for his English class, and it was some text that they read. And this was very much the assignment that the students did. And I think I might have just helped to simplify the language a little bit. But then he could use his text to speech to listen to the text, and then he would just highlight the answer. And then this is him using it to take a test. And this is kind of when we started during COVID with just beginning to use some of those features. So he's probably been using text to speech and speech to text even before he was fully included. We started a little bit probably when he was like, I want to say like 11 or 12. And could you guys hear that audio? If someone could just give me a thumbs up. If not, I will. Yeah, okay, great. What did people build during the Cold War? Asterisk. Cars unselected. Cars. Bomb shelters selected. Bomb shelters. Bomb shelter. A bomb shelter. That's a bomb shelter. What is that for? To hide. To hide from what? But giant bomb, like, yeah. So I'm just going to play a little section of that. That was him using the select to speak function on Google Chrome, but the link on this previous slide has a bunch of options. Like the tools that he uses on his phone are the same thing, but getting to them and finding them and accessing them are a little different. And so basically the strategy is whatever new device you have, you can just Google for a video on how to have it read to you. And it'll come up with whatever is the newest option. Okay, so that kind of brings me to AI because he does use text to speech and speech to text with his AI, and he has gotten proficient with that over time. And so some of these suggestions, I think it's useful for any kid, but I mean, just remember that we started with like, I mean, when we would talk on the phone with family, he would just stop talking and hand the phone over. And he wouldn't even really like initiate conversation. He would just kind of respond and he didn't have his own phone and he hadn't logged into a computer. So we've come a really long way in a short amount of time. Um, Actually a lot further than I would have ever predicted, which I feel like is really sad because I should have like a lot of high knowledge and expectations as both a teacher and a parent, but it just the tech integrating the tech was just such a unexpectedly helpful part of our journey that I don't think I could have predicted it. So some of the ways that we use AI for student independence and for in schools are doing some of these things, but also for home. So Davin will use his AI now for when he goes to a restaurant, and I'll show you that um, in a minute. But he'll just I've programmed in his if you download ChatGPT, you can kind of program it as a parent and say like when this happens, I always want you to respond like this, and it will. And so he just has to say kind of where he is, and it if it's a restaurant, it'll know that he can't read the menu, and his reader doesn't work on the menus because it'll read everything, like all of the ingredients in every single dish and everything. So that's really not effective. He can't use his reader, but I'd love for him to order independently. And so that's one where, again, the mindset, how there's got to be a way that AI can help with this. And so I just started asking AI. I just started saying, like, how could you help with this? And if you've never used AI, it's kind of neat and kind of a little creepy because you can just have a regular conversation and it will just talk back with you. And so AI gave me a lot of these ideas, and I was like, okay. And so then we played around with it, and so now with his his free ChatGPT that's on his phone, if he says, you know, Applebee's, it'll say, oh, okay, at Applebee's, there's this, that, and the other, and I'll demo that in a second. He used it very recently to create a resume where it asked him questions one step at a time, and he made his resume. Um, and yeah, Deanna, do you want to go ahead and jump in and ask a question? Feel free to
Thanks.
jump
I
in.
wasn't sure if we were supposed to hold him to the end, but I would be so interested to know if he has his own Chat GPT account so that it starts to recognize him and his prompts, or do you guys share one?
Yeah, so I bought an account finally because I was like, maybe I should. But then I found out that the free one actually does remember the app on his phone. Like if it's and it'll remember based on the email address that he logged in on. So actually the free one does everything I kind of need it to. And I just have to go in and kind of prompt it like, okay, that didn't work. And so I'll recreate the prompt and I'll say, okay, that, you know, when you said this wasn't helpful. Next time do it this way. And it'll remember those conversations. But yeah, I asked
Awesome.
again, I asked ChatGPT, I said, can you remember conversations, you know, on the free one? And it said, yes,
Yeah.
I can. And so I
And
said,
then
okay.
and then my other question is his speech easily recognizable?
No. And so that was a problem. When he hit middle school, they were going to exit him from speech. And I really fought for him not to be exited. And that was my thing is that speech for him was a super accessible way for like that was his strongest skill is his speech, even though his intelligibility was really poor. Like when we first started with text to speech, or sorry, speech to text, where he would talk. That's why he uses the recordings a lot, is because it really still doesn't understand him super well. So he has to use a lot of recording features. So when in the options for having things to like read to and for writing, I have some options for recording. Like one of them is Vocaroo, which will record and then create a link to that recording, and also like a QR code if you want. You can embed it. You can do all kinds of stuff. But that's the stuff that he has to use because his speech is non-standard speech. And I know they're coming out with technology that's going to be better and better. Like if it weren't for Google, Microsoft products like never recognize his speech. And his intelligibility has gotten better because of this technology, because he really wants that Justin Bieber video, to play. But he still struggles. And then little things that his speech has improved because of it is it's not so much he's very much like me, as you can tell, starting and stopping and thinking of another idea and integrating it. Is he will start and stop something, and it's really hard for him to get a whole idea out. And so when we started, it again, I never would have thought we're where we are, because he would say, like, we'd practice saying, okay, so say, show me pictures of trees. And it would be like 3 slices of cheese. And it just wouldn't be at all what we were wanting. And so it was like, wow, maybe this is never going to be accessible for him. But over time, it's really been pretty good. And then I'm going to show you in just a sec the Access Helper GPT that I created. Which again is that mindset, like there has to be a way. And so when I created, I kind of tried to do what I did with his chat GPT with, since I paid for an account, I can make what they call a chat bot, which is something that you guys can use with the link, which I do have. And that when I made that one, I kind of had more of my students in mind that are AAC users, that if they could listen to the choices, they might not be able to respond at all. And so this one is set up where if I just type a letter, it's going to ask me what I need help with. And then I can use I can listen to this being read.
Hi there. What do you need help with? Here are some choices to get started. 1, ordering food. 2, writing something. 3, doing things at home. 4, something else.
So, and you can play with the speed of that. I have it kind of set to a little bit slow, but then you can, you could, let's say you're in class, pick writing something. And so it should ask like, well, where are you? So it can help to kind of understand what an assignment might be. And it'll prompt if you can't tell about the assignment, to go get, a teacher to put in the assignment. But if you can use the voice mode, and I'll show the voice mode. Let's see. I'm not sure about using with Zoom. A paper for class.
Got it. It's for class. Do you know what the topic is? Yes, I know the topic. No, I'm not sure. My teacher can type it in. Which one fits best?
George Washington.
Awesome. George Washington. Let's see what you already know. Why is George Washington important? He was the first president of the United States. He was a famous basketball player. Something else. Which one do you think is right?
He was a president.
Yes, that's right. He was the first president. Let's start with our first sentence. Which one sounds like a good beginning? George Washington was a brave leader who helped start.
Okay, and so it's programmed in to help them write a paragraph, which my son, if he was still in a life skills class, would be working on. Because I mean, again, at that when we started this, he couldn't write a word. He wasn't recognizing all of the alphabet. I mean, that's all hard for him. So he probably, if he was in life skills, would still be working on, a few sight words like hot dog, and writing his personal information and things like that, as opposed to like now he's really utilizing it. And I guess I'll just show that video. I'm bouncing around a little, but let's see. I know I have a video of him, writing his argumentative essay. So this was him using not ChatGPT, but the Gemini AI, which is another platform of AI, to write an argumentative essay for class.
This is Inclusion Made Easy, back with another tip. I'm a special education teacher.
I'm gonna forward it to, so this was for his English class, his 10th grade ELA at the time. And this was an argumentative essay.
Details and requirements that you're wanting, guys, that's it. Students do the rest. Playing outside or inside is a great topic for an argumentative essay. It's most people have experience with both. Here's your first question. Would you like to write about why playing outside is better or why playing inside is better? This is an essay which takes time, so I've taken just a few essential clips to show you a bit of what AI can do. Full screen Gemini AI. And since he cannot yet read, what he's clicking on is the speaker icon, which provides the text and speech so he can listen. And now you'll see him use the microphone icon to speak his answers. Okay, you want to argue that playing outside is better. Great choice. To start an argumentative essay, we need a clear claim. Your claim is that playing outside is better than playing inside. The next step is the counterclaim, which is the other side of the argument. Someone might say playing inside is better because it's comfortable or there are more choices. Do you think the counterclaim is about comfort and choice or something else? All right, playing inside.
Okay, and so for that one, I'll just skip ahead to the prompt. And then and I don't know why it's not going to full screen, you guys. I promise I'm clicking full screen and it's just not doing it. So the prompt was, I need to write an argumentative essay with a claim, counterclaim, quoted evidence from an online source, and reasoning, because it's a 10th grade essay, right? That's a lot. And then I found it does help to say, I have an intellectual disability and I need you to ask very simple questions one at a time. Give me 2 choices for an answer. Like my son, if he hears more than 2 choices, if there's too many choices, he'll just go with the last one. And so again, like this is what works for my son, but this is, you're getting down to like how I used the tool, but the strategy was, I know the skills that he has and what he can and can't do at this point. And so how am I going to help him to write an essay? So it's going to look different for every kid. Maybe there's less support, maybe there's more support, if they're an AAC user, having like that access helper where it has the 1 and the 2 and then the 3 for something else, so that if they can listen to it, they can just type in a 1 or a 2. So the strategies you use are going to change depending on whoever the person is that is going to be utilizing this technology. But then his argumentative essay at the end, after about like 20 minutes, I'd say, was this, which, yeah, that's not going to be a 10th grade essay for anyone else, but he is accessing a 10th grade argumentative essay, which is way more than he would have been doing in his life skills classroom. And so this was the essay that it put together, and he got to choose it, and he got to, figure out what to say about it, and pick his claims and all of that. And it kind of tutored him through it as well. So yeah, and like I said, he uses it to order at restaurants now, and it's been really neat to see him order things that I would not have picked for him, because usually I'm the one helping him, right? And so when we go places, I tend to give him choices that I know he already likes. And I narrow it down in ways that, like, having this, it's really kind of even just as simple, like we went to gosh, where was it, the Shipwreck Cafe the other day, and he ordered oysters and eggs, and I was like, I would have never thought of that as an option, and he ate it all, and he was super excited to have ordered it himself. So it's just been really kind of neat to see the way that he can do it. And so some of the other things, like I said, is part of the links that you guys will have is just copy paste prompts that you can start to play around with ChatGPT. If you've never used ChatGPT, getting there, you just Google it, ChatGPT, and it'll come right up. And it has that voice feature, and the first time, if you've never used it, it'll ask you to log in with an email and maybe like one other question, but it's totally free to use. And there are a couple of other platforms, like Gemini is the same as ChatGPT. It's all kind of the same. It's all AI. But I tried to capture some of the prompts. And again, it's not super specific because I don't know. Sometimes I'd put it in and it wouldn't be right, and then I would try again and say, don't ask it this way, ask it this way, till I got the level of support just right that made the most sense for him. So like when he goes shopping, he does not recognize bills super well, and he certainly can't count bills, and he doesn't know yet if he has enough money for something. So that's one of the things that I have his helper do for him, is I have him if he puts in a number, one of the things it'll ask is like, is that how much money you have? And so because he can copy numbers. And so I was like, okay, what can he do? He can copy numbers, but he doesn't know how much something is. And so it'll ask him, is that how much you have, or is that how much is the thing that you want? And then he'll just kind of go from there. And so it's helped him to know if he has enough money for something. And then because paying with cash is just not really accessible to him, because unless he has $100 bill or something that'll definitely pay for it, we have tap to pay. And so he has a non-overdrawing debit card. There's so much tech, you guys, but it's just really having that mindset of like, how, like, what do I think, what is shopping going to look like? What are the skills that he has right now, and what do I think I can build on from that? And again, it's really that mindset of like, how am I going to make this a little more independent and take myself out of the equation more and more? And is there a way for me to take the adult out? And AI really, before AI, there was tools, but AI really kind of is like a person. And so really with like a good prompt, it can really ask him the questions and do the things that I kind of would have done with him. So, yeah, and I'm seeing a question in the chat, and we share your YouTube video on our channel. Yeah, totally. You absolutely can. And yes, I'm glad you brought up it's best not to use names and personal information when using AI. I was going to link, there's another OSPI put out a document on just like some cautions around AI, and that's really good. That could be a whole presentation in and of itself. There's so much to say on this topic. It's a really big topic in a really short amount of time. So I tried to like give a smattering of like some ideas, cooking and schoolwork assistance and social communication, and just kind of a smattering of things. But there really is a lot, and safety is one of them. They say it's not great to share personal information. When he made his resume, I will say, because he doesn't have his name and address memorized, it did ask him, and I did let him put it in. For me, I kind of figured like, what is it going to do with his information? But it is open source. So if someone really wanted to like hack into his history and look that up, they would have that information somewhere. I don't know. I'm not a super warrior like that, but definitely if you are, then don't include that stuff. But most of what he does not include personal information. So that was the only time, making that resume was the only time he's ever put in anything like super personal. I mean, technically, when he says the name like Shipwreck Cafe, you could probably look that was in Shelton, and I don't know what they would do with that, or who would want that, or why they would find that interesting. But certainly, I don't necessarily want him putting like bank information in there. That might be something I would not do. But I think that OSDI guide, which I can also find for you guys and link, I think that one's really helpful to just kind of keep in mind. And it would be neat to do like another presentation about like what these platforms are, because I mean, I didn't really explain any of that. This was just a very quick overview. And I didn't even really get to like one of the tools that I use to like create really fast modified assignments for him, which is like another tool, which is Brisk, which I don't think we'll have time for tonight, but it simplifies reading materials right like within seconds. It can do personalized tutoring, kind of like ChatGPT can do, and it pre-makes Google quizzes like the ones that you saw. It'll just make it from a PDF. So yeah, lots more to say, but I see that we're kind of running short on time. So I want to just open it up to any questions and say thank you for letting me share, and I would be happy to share more if there was more time. So
tell us your name again, Danae. Introduce yourself, because we didn't get to do that in the beginning on video. So I want everybody watching this video to know who you are. Sorry.
Yeah, so I guess I'll pop back to the beginning there. So I'm Danae Place, and I am right now I've been working for the Shelton School District as their special education and early learning facilitator. I am not coming in that capacity. I also work for the Inclusionary Practices Technical Assistant Network, helping to promote things like this to teachers and administrators and parents across the state. Also not coming to you from that capacity either. I'm just coming to you today as a member of Mason County and a parent here, because I am a parent in this area and trying to navigate as my son moves into his senior year what transition is going to look like in adulthood and getting around and jobs and all of that. So yeah, happy to just help in any way that I can with lifting our kids up and providing them access in any way that I can. I've been in education for over 20 years, and I've worked pretty much every kind of job in special education, in pretty much every setting. I did a lot of time working as a teacher of students with significant disabilities. And I've done self-contained life skills classes. So when I say like, oh gosh, this is so much better than what we would have done in a life skills classroom, I know that very deeply because I used to be a teacher in a life skills classroom. And I've also done like full-time co-teaching and resource and everything in between. So yeah, a little about me.
No better person to give us this intro to artificial intelligence and helping our kids. Wow. And the numbers don't lie with your own son. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it backs what all the research says. I mean, because I could have brought a whole thing on the research too, but honestly, like I would not have believed the research if it hadn't been for, our journey. So
I'm going to talk to you about future workshops. Maybe we can plan something. But I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now and then open it up for questions. Thanks everybody for being here.